Welcome to the Conscious Living Podcast, conversations to educate, empower, and enlighten our world. An uplifting and inspiring series of conversations and talks with your host, Jackie Woodside. We are educating minds, empowering lives, and enlightening souls to create a world where love prevails. In this engaging podcast, we deliver exciting, positive, transformative talks and teachings designed to elevate your life. Now, let's join our host, Jackie Woodside, for this week's session.
Hi, everybody. Jackie Woodside here, the founder of the Conscious Living Podcast, where you and I are here to educate, empower, and enlighten our world. Thank you so much for being here with me today and for being one of the people that cares about creating a more enlightened, more kind, a more loving world for all of us to enjoy. Today, I could not be happier to bring forward my dear friend and colleague, Steve Farrell, who has just an extraordinarily rich and deep and captivating story, really, of his journey from being a Silicon Valley executive now to being the co-founder of Humanities Team, a nonprofit organization that is here providing educational content to help people do what? Live more consciously. So Steve and I are passionate advocates about this notion that we are living in a time of awakening humanity to our truth, our true essence, and yes, awakening humanity to our divinity. So Steve, thank you so much for being here with us today. Do you mind just saying a few more things about yourself and then we'll hop on in?
Yeah, Jackie, well, thank you for having me. It's wonderful to be with you as always. And there's so much that I look forward to diving into with you, Jackie. As you mentioned, my book just came out, A New Universal Dream. And it's a true story, telling the story of me from age 12 to all the way to today, the story of Humanities Team, how it was launched, where we're at. And it really was written to support people on their conscious journey. Because on the one hand, as we know, the conscious journey, conscious living is delicious, and we would live it just because of what it brings to our own life. And on the other hand, there are these arduous moments on the path, plenty of them, which I describe in my book. And I call those out and say, wow, this is what happened. This is what I lived through. This is how, what you might want to think about too, when these things happen, to sort of prepare people, get their legs strong. Because again, there are moments on the journey where we go through these things. Well worth it.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody that would turn around and go back, but
yes, right. Steve, one of the things I admire about you and that people I think would be quite interested in, I hear a lot from my coaching clients, I'm sure you hear it a lot on Humanities Team, that people do feel this universal impulse to grow into some new expression of themselves. I know I went through it similarly. I was a full-time psychotherapist and felt this universal urge coming through me for a different level of expression, being a teacher and podcaster and author, all the things that I'm doing. You went through that same process being in Silicon Valley, which to me, my jump from being a psychotherapist into a kind of spiritual teacher, empowerment teacher, leadership coach, that didn't seem like that big of a jump. For you, the jump from being a Silicon Valley executive into this world of consciousness and awakening is a bit more of a stretch. So can you tell people like what the call was, why you even had the thought, like you're having this life, your life was perfectly fine working in Silicon Valley. And then here you are, co-founder with Neil Donald Walsh of Humanities Team. So can you get into that? Because I do hear from a lot of people that they feel this urge, but they don't know, should I pursue this? Is it worth it? How do I do it? So let's go there as we begin.
Yes. Okay, so let me share then, playing into this. So there's the arc of this book, which is my story. It's got three legs to it. So the first one is me as a young person that I think people can relate to. I grew up in a very modest home. I had a divorced single mom, and there were 6 siblings, 7 of us in a 1,300 square foot home. And I think I told you the story. I even paid for my braces when I was in the 6th grade. I found a nice orthodontist that would take $10 a month. And so, we were on a budget. So this is how I grew up. Of course, I put myself through college that way. So that's the first first stop here in the Ark. Then I find myself, as you mentioned, 11 years after I leave Northern Virginia, where I grew up, went through college. I'm out there in the center of wealth in Silicon Valley because I just was in the right place at the right time as my two businesses were launched in this area of data communications. Take the first company to 75 million in 10 years, and birthed the second one inside the first one, and we took it to 75 million in 2 years. So that then gave me entrance to this whole center of wealth creation where I'm in the business clubs. Gavin Newsom was there's 60 people in my chapter. He was one of them. Andy Cunningham, who was the woman that worked with Steve Jobs, the marketing genius that helped him launch the Mac. Hamid Moghadam, who runs the largest real estate equity investment trust in the whole world. Those are three. The others were remarkable. I could keep going, but I won't. But really remarkable people that I still have great respect for to today. Now, this then brings me into your question here, Jackie, which is the third leg of this arc, which was the calling to the conscious journey. And you're saying perhaps everybody's being called to it now. So, and I'm going to say something really bold. Just as I was called to it, I do believe everybody is being called to it now. I believe that this is a smell the coffee moment, actually, because with the extreme weather and with tied to global warming, Ukraine, it's quite dangerous, and other, just immigration, social injustice all over the place. I believe post-COVID, almost everybody that I talk to are like, isn't there more than this? And I want to live into my deeper values now. And I'm looking for meaning. I want purpose. I want that to be a part of my whole life, including my professional life. So yes, I think people are being called to it. It is, I have to admit, I don't know anybody like me, with the possible exception of Jude Currivan. She was a CFO for major companies in Europe and left to also be a pioneer on this path. But she would be the only other person I know where we were really right in the middle of it, and we were called to leave it.
Wow. And like, how did you know you were called, Steve? What was that process like for you?
So that moment, I'll describe that moment because it actually did culminate in a moment where I was sitting there in my townhouse looking out my window, and I had to make the decision. And in that moment, I was deciding that I was either going to stand with both feet in one of two worlds. One world, the world I'd grown up in, the son of Linda and Joe, my parents, and with this body and Steve Farrell, and I'm going to do what I'm going to do in this lifetime. Yeah. The other one, where my parents still play a significant role, they're the airport terminal, so to speak, delivering me to the earth, but I'm actually offspring, an emanation of the one, with everybody else, by the way. Every viewer and listener here, same thing. They are offspring that we came here by design. We chose to come here. We wanted to physicalize. We came from the non-physical realm because we wanted to be here embodied during this great awakening. And which means that I'm Rumi quote, I'm the whole ocean in a drop, which means I've got everlasting life and unlimited potential, right? All of the things.
Yeah.
The source has. So I'm either primarily the second thing or I'm primarily the first thing. And when I decided I'm primarily the second thing, then the whole world shifted. I mean, the ground that I stood on shifted. And so even as a CEO, I would have people say, and I wasn't trying to proselytize or anything, but I'd have people say, wow, you are really you've become deeply spiritual, and it's a little different here in Silicon Valley. So I did have people come to me with that desire.
What would they notice, Steve? How did you bring that spirituality into work such that people were noticing?
Well, one thing I did that was very scary for me, might not sound that way, but I threw away my day planners. So because I'm task driven, and I'd meet and, okay, where are we on these 10 things? And are you going to get on these other 10?
And yeah.
Day planner had to go. It's like, there is no integrity in that, it's going to go. So I trashed it and then went to, like right now, where we're deeply listening to each other, real heart to heart communication. So that was one of the big changes that is how also would have impacts on other things.
Wait, do you mind if I pick that up a little bit more?
Sure. Yeah. No, let's.
I actually, I'm also deeply spiritual, feel very led and called, and I'm fairly attached to my day timer. So, just great. I mean, you and I had an appointment today, so we had a time that we were going to meet. So you still are using some type of planning, scheduling. So help me understand how you've integrated the sense of deeply listening and being connected and kind of guided by spirit throughout your day versus planning your days, your weeks, your goals. I mean, you just published a book.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an enormous undertaking, Steve. You run one of the biggest podcasts in the spiritual space. You have an educational streaming platform. You are doing a lot of stuff. So how do you do that with this juxtaposition of not keeping a day timer?
Right. Yeah. Let me share. I'm not an advocate for getting rid of their.
Right. I'd be lost if my schedule doesn't tell me what to do. I would be completely lost. Yeah.
I actually don't go out and advocate that. I just needed to do it for me. I needed to do it. What I realized, Jackie, was really interesting was when I got rid of the day planner, I realized, oh my God, it's all right. This whole omnipotence thing, and of course, omnipresence backs it up. So it's connection, wisdom, power. So I realized, oh my God, it's true. I mean, everything is right here at my fingertips. If I were going to go out and even speak to a large audience for 45 minutes, wouldn't have a speech. I mean, I just really unfold what's coming to me. I would just, it's there. I realized it was there all along. And which, by the way, the sense of freedom and just more than freedom is like, wow, this is so neat that I don't have to organize myself. The universe is organized coming through me. So I'm
fascinated with this, and I don't want to veer too off from going further into your book, but I'm also kind of a neuroscience, science and spirituality junkie. And if you get before a room full of people to give a talk, for a lot of people, what happens is if you get anxious, your frontal lobe shut down and you can't think clearly and prioritize. So you're saying you've just mastered that sense of your human side, your human nature, by allowing spirit to just speak through you without that sense of, your frontal lobe shutting down or getting anxious of what I might say. You quiet that mind and spirit speaks through you.
So that would be true today. Now, just so there's an accuracy here, I was a middle kid growing up. I mentioned a rather large family. So in public speaking specifically, I did have a growth curve through this, and you described beautifully what I was experiencing. I had to go through a lot of Dale Carnegie, and other public speaking programs to just address that specifically, where I could not just freeze up, as I was talking about things. And now I do go into programs all the time, large audiences, and I realized that I actually I will hurt my performance. Try and put anything around it instead of just really going to kind of what is coming through, that wants to come through, where I think I speak much more powerfully.
Beautiful. I love that. I do a fair amount of speaking as well, and I do tend to have my not the script, the outline of what I'm going to say, but where I feel sharpest is in interviews or class teaching, where people are just asking questions. And again, a spirit coming through, I feel like I say things that are so much more deep and more profound. So I do appreciate that experience, Steve, and the commitment that it's taken for you to master that ability to quiet the ego mind, the kind of anxious, what if I don't say it right? And quiet that part of your human capacity so that your spiritual capacity can take the lead. It's really lovely to see that in you.
Yeah, well, thank you. I mean, conscious living, which I love. Of course, we both share the same passion. So we describe in Humanities Team the very same thing, Jackie. And so for me, that's its beauty. It is, oh my gosh, it's like we sit on a raft, that sits up above the daily up and down roller coaster, good day, bad day, challenging. We still have, when we began this program, with challenges. You and I actually have substantial challenges in our family lives, but it's different. It's just completely different. I don't get up and I remember those. Oh, it's a bad day, didn't feel good, walking around, kind of stuck up in my head.
Yeah.
I never tried to do something in terms of drop that down, but it happened. It's a feeling into, not a thinking
Right.
thing.
Right.
And my daily practice just keeps me, on that raft, which is where I want to be.
I love that. Do you mind? I know we're jumping ahead a little bit here, but you just said it, so I'd love to go there for just a bit. And then let's go back to the book after this question. Talked about your daily practice and how that keeps you above the waves rather than sinking in. It's a beautiful metaphor, and I feel very much the same way. Do you mind saying a little bit about your daily practice and what that is for people who perhaps know they want to have one, but just don't know where to begin?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are a few things here, and these things change for me over time. I'll describe where it is exactly right now. Is uh, where throughout my day, certainly at the beginning of the day and at the end of the day, but also during the day, I'll find these moments where I've got two places that I love to sit, one outside, one inside, where I just really, this whole metaphysical thing, I do feel into this beautiful future of an earth awakening. My son Dylan, who we've talked about, just beautiful things happening with him, where he's a model and example for people going through mental and emotional challenges. So seeing that, my family, just seeing really beautiful things that we're doing as we're doing our service work, but also just enjoying as a family. And then with Humanities Team, with this reach and impact and streaming platform and this awakening and coming into the fullness of the new spirituality, really seeing that and feeling that. Because what I've learned over these years, I started more with a prayer that I created, which is about 3 single space pages. I still have it. And I
Wow.
used to really read that carefully throughout the day. But as what I've learned, and all of us, I think, on the conscious journey are learning, is that, of course, intention setting is so huge, right? Our attention must be our intention, but that's the beginning of it. So, because the linchpin of the universe actually is metaphysics. So, and metaphysics is, Joe Dispenza spends a lot of time with this, though I go in a slightly different direction than him with it. But it's where we really see, feel, taste, and touch that future, that where we understand the divine, or one, we call it the divine and humanities team source, is working through us, and we're creating that, and we're seeing it and feeling it, tasting it and touching it, and we're drawing it to us as we do. So that's the most important part of my practice. And the other thing is I love spiritual music. My family laughs at me. I play spiritual music all the time. They say, "Oh my God, I've heard that song 100 times." Or thing. And but that's, it's part of that whole raft that
Beautiful. What I like about that, Steve, it very much fits with one of the things I like to teach about, what's your daily practice. One of the things I like to say is my daily practice is to make my life my living prayer. Um,
yeah.
so I love the way you just said that of, well, it's throughout my day. And for me, similarly, while I do have a practice of in the mornings and the evenings, my true practice is to do everything that I'm doing with clarity, love, intention, attention, to be present, to be mindful, to bring forth what I like to call my God self on earth, to subjugate my personality so that my highest spiritual essence, my conscious awareness, is what's driving the show. And it sounds very similar to what you're describing. And I love that you have devoted time to seeing the future, imagining the future that you want to see for yourself, your family, and the world. It's, in the Unity tradition, they call that the spiritual power of imagination. Charles Fillmore, Neville Goddard were two of the teachers that talk about that. So I love that you bring that into your daily life, and that, as I listen to you, that's something I need to do more of, is imagining the future I want to experience. So I'm going to borrow that throughout my day from you. That's beautiful.
Yeah, you, and boy, you're a real advanced one, pioneer on the trail. So thank you for that, because you're doing you're doing so many beautiful things here with your audience. Let me bring in real quick, Jackie. There are 3 premises of the book, but it goes at some of what we're talking about here. So
Good.
the one is that there's a universal consciousness that is animating and permeating all of life. So science is affirming this. So right? Now, the second one, this is where we're going to go into what we're talking about now. These things, one follows the other, follows the other. The second one is then that we are actually in the design of this one of source. We are a cell in the body of source.
I
So this
love
is
that. I love that.
now is now saying now to the extent that that's true, the body always loves the cell within it, and you and I touched on this last time we were together. Then the cell also loves back the body. It's a reciprocal thing. How can we not? So where we really understand, oh my God, there really is one consciousness, one presence that's animating, permeating all of life, and I'm within it, and I'm inseparable from it. And of course, it loves it. Well, how could it not love us to pieces? Now, and then why would we not reciprocate? I mean, it loves us. It's got this wind at our back. It's helped you build your program, helped you with all of these things with your son and my son. I mean, why would we not love it back in the most extraordinary way? It's just part of the design, right? Not that we have to, we're given free will. So we can say, oh, I don't care about, and I don't even think I'm part of it, and I'm going to live as separate. Well, the universe says that's fine. We have free will, live as you want. But why would we not, as we start living into the truth of this design? So then the third premise of the book is kind of cliche, but cliche just means that a lot of people have thought about it and talked about it. And that is that the more we give ourselves away, the better we feel. That's part of the design. And in my book, there's a billionaire example to really go, a guy named Ken Behring, who I got to know, who had even owned an NFL football team. And he had all the 150 sports cars and the 737 private jet. I mean, he had the whole deal. And he said, oh my God, it wasn't until I turned 80, died at 92, that I figured it out. He created a wheelchair foundation, that gave mobility to people and families that were carrying people around in the third world, because it wasn't just mobility for the person. The whole family actually was very challenged. And they give them just a wheelchair and bam, And so for 12 years, he flew his 737 all around the world with his wheelchairs, giving them away. And he said, I found it. I finally found it. So this is the design, right? This is the design. And I could also, this is very elite. So as we talk, I want to bring in, for somebody blue collar, just barely getting by. Why is conscious living? Why is that important? Because I get to that too. And actually, when I was saying earlier, it's like a raft floating up above. That's why, because when we're blue collar, white collar, very barely getting by, I got to get to here, I got to go do this, and then we're on the job, and I'm off in 2 hours, I'm off in 1 hour. It's just kind of a grind, right?
Yeah.
And it's that roller coaster grind.
Yeah.
That day, we've lived that, almost all of us. I certainly have. When we come in and start living this way, whether we're a billionaire or blue collar, we're on the raft.
Yeah.
We're flow. We're now living in connection with the universe. And these three premises, I believe, are what we can do whatever we want. But I believe if we live into those three premises, then we really get there.
Yeah. And it changes everything. When you really do recognize, I love this notion of we're cells of one body, right? So when you recognize that you and I are, if you will, separate cells, but of the same body, it gives us a kinship to one another that, the whole notion of not sending wheelchairs if you have the ability to, or of sending missiles or bombs into a community or taking over a country would just be so extremely absurd, because, well, what is there to take over? So it really is. It's why I'm so, and I know you as well, passionate about this topic of people awakening to consciousness, is that when you really recognize this oneness and recognize this level of conscious living, there is no animosity. So I believe it is the keys to bringing peace into the world, the ending of hunger, and I say creating a world where love prevails.
Yeah, absolutely. It is that. Yeah. And of course, our Changing Humanity's Future initiative is saying there's a remedy.
There's a remedy. Yeah. Yeah. There's a section of your book that talks about love, that kind of love is the way, or something similar to that. Do you mind I'm trying to look. Oh, yeah, The Power of Love, chapter 66, The
Yeah.
Power of Love. Do you mind just going a little bit there and again, in a practical way, talking about not the romantic notion of love, but love as a verb and how that fits into humanity's team changing, creating a new future, but also just practical conscious living for you and me day to day.
Absolutely. So, and I even end the very last paragraph goes into this. So, this is our expression, if we want it, where we're a loving expression. So, which for a male, I'm a male,
Right.
and I came from Silicon Valley, which is alpha male land. So, this is kind of for where I'm going there with this. I am certain of it that this is the thing, that oneness is sort of the quantitative, but the qualitative or essence of it is love. In one word, it's love. Now, love has many different ways of expressing, but that is our basis. I believe that's why we came into this life, was to unfold into greater and greater expressions of love. So let me give some,
Yeah.
let's get into some practical examples, and some might be rather bold. I'll start with something pretty bold.
Okay.
What I tend to do is that, we now talk of in our life, well, there's all these things that are rather transactional and these other things that are rather relational. Well, what I'm hearing is that the word transactional goes away. There actually is no, we won't, when we're into the fullness of conscious living, there is no such thing as transactional, because the whole reason that we came here was the relational. It was, we were a candle in the sun, and there was nothing but the one, right? We're in that pure light, pure love container in the afterlife, and we go back and forth between the afterlife and the non-physical life and the physical life. And we said, I want to be the expression of love, of light. And then say, okay, well, then we're going to have you be born into, especially an early civilization like this one, where our species is rather young in the universe, where we got plenty of darkness, and it's what feels good, right? It's that's that third premise, that the more we give ourselves away, the better it feels. Well, giving ourselves away, that's love. That's love. So, and it's not transactional, because even in hospitals and schools and even in churches, right, we all have felt and do feel in today's world, it feels rather transactional. It
Sure.
rather there's like at arm's length,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, hospitals are starting to use robots to take blood pressure and temperatures and things like literal robots. That's transactional.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so in my understanding, as this is unfolding, that this is in conscious living. This is what we're coming into. Of boy, that's gone. There's not a place for that. We can if we want. Again, we have free will, but the invitation is love. It's relational. It's spending quality time. It's really listening and really hearing, and then really speaking too. And more from that heart level, then so the more wisdom center of the soul and logic center of the mind, and where we engage that way. And and then if we're loving, and somebody, there's a particular challenge one of us has, we help the other one, helps the other one. Well, it feels good. I mean, it just really feels good, whether we're the receiver or the giver, on either side of it. It feels good. So this is the invitation. I feel certain, and I feel as we're folding into this world where the remedy really raises its head, and people understand, oh my God, there are many people already living consciously all over the world. Let's get to the 10%. Let's create the tipping point, and then microcosm, macrocosm, right? The whole world starts to reflect this beauty of conscious living. And all of a sudden we have this sustainable and flourishing planet for our kids and future generations.
Right, exactly. I love that. I love that notion of it only takes a tipping point of 10% of the world. I also love what you're saying too, Steve, that love, you're not talking about an emotion. You're talking about a worldview, a philosophy, an approach to life, a way of being, and actions that you then take. That everything you do, whether it's, you're working in a school, caring for young children, or a daycare center, or you're cleaning floors at a grocery store, stocking shelves, or you're running a corporation in Silicon Valley, it really doesn't matter when it's the vibration that gets created. Can you create the vibration of love through the way you think, and feel, and then how you interact with your activities and other people. That's what brings love into our world. It's not that you have to be on a podcast or on a streaming, entertainment center, educational center. It's doing what you do where you are with a loving consciousness.
Yeah, exactly. So you mentioned in the opening, we are this one presence that I describe is divinity itself, and we're cells. We are divinity itself too. Everything is. So, and divinity itself is actually vibrational. So, and it's hugely important because everything we think, say, do, wear,
Yeah.
everything is vibrational. So we want to pay close attention because the whole idea when we talk about divinity is we're raising our vibration so that it's very elevated. That's the raft, it's very elevated where we really are seeing and feeling. And I was bringing in even the metaphysical of how it can really go out into new things that we're creating. But it's vibrational where we are really doing the things, eating the food, sleeping, all of these things, how we're interacting with our family, our coworkers.
Yeah.
It's all vibrational. And of course, where we really take it up to high levels, we become healers, right? And they're John of God and Reiki healers, and that this is what they do. They're operating also mediums or up at that level. Very,
or
very
healers through their consciousness. Dr. David Hawkins from Sedona, Arizona used to say that one person who's vibrating at a high enough consciousness can mitigate the lower vibration of violence and threat and war of an entire city. And what that means is, again, it's how you see yourself in the world. It is the vibration that gets created by how you think, how you feel, and then how you interact. And an example of this for me in my life is Gandhi. I mean, what did Gandhi do? He made salt and he did, weaved and made some cloth and gave some talks. He wasn't rallying an army. He wasn't trying to start a movement per se, but it was through his consciousness of being that he created a worldwide movement, as did Jesus Christ, as did Buddha, as did Muhammad. But when you think about it, and I want to make this practical for the person listening to this podcast on Spotify while driving in traffic, how you're being in traffic right now creates a vibration. Or the person listening to it preparing dinner for your kids, how you interact with your kids and preparing dinner creates a vibration. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah. So let me talk to two things here. One is just as you're saying, and this is the fruit. So it's not like we have to do these things, where we're with, where I've got a 21-year-old, as you know, an 18-year-old, and they're going off I don't have to be anything. But where I do, as you suggest, and stay in a higher vibration and say, hey, it's because I love you that I am doing these things, because I see this incredible life for you. And as your parent, I see this is the role that I'm playing. And I talk like, nice. I'm not talking. So now let me bring in, though, you mentioned Gandhi in my book. I share Gandhi helped me in my own evolution because especially as a guy, it's kind of glorified if a guy goes, oh, you're going to go off on me. Well, I'm going to go off on you, right? A lot of guys actually grow up that way. I would see that. And I experienced that myself. Now, what Gandhi shares is that in his nonviolence, no, that's his truth to himself. The life that he built, where even when terrible things were done to him, and he was captured and went to prison, and people yelled at him, and worse, that in his nonviolence, he was going to be his very best self, as gentle and and as loving and truthful as possible.
Yeah.
That had a real impact on me. And I remember as I was reading this, I said to myself, okay, I'm gonna do this too. I'm gonna endeavor to never go into a triggered state, and as that emotion's rising up in me, and that self wants to come hard back, of just really go to the place of Gandhi, what he called nonviolence. It's really loving expression.
Right.
And that I'm going to be, and I've noticed where I do this, I'm much more powerful, they haven't cleaned their dish, or there's something where I just stay in this state, and I'm talking, my impact is magnified 1,000 from if I were just coming back hard on somebody.
So great. Steve, that's it's really, really helpful for me to hear that, in dealing with my own son and the struggles that we have. And am I enabling his behavior, or am I helping with his disabilities, and helping him to move along on his growth and development path? And, my own inner struggle about that. If I just stop all the inner struggle, and just, if, I don't, again, cliche, what would love do now? If I just come back to that simple premise of, that is what we are here to do, bring and emanate forth to the world. And if we can't emanate it forth in our own homes, who are we to stand out in front of anyone else? So that's a
But
beautiful.
let me say, it is so, because Jackie and I want to say to viewers, we know each other.
Right.
We know we with adoption created some really, really challenging circumstances that we both have. So these are not easy things at all. And enabling is something I think about all the time, because there's legacy stuff that goes back, and there's no easy answers. But this is, part of this conscious living is the whole listening to that still small voice and understanding that, boy, we got all the guidance here in the world if we request it. So,
Yeah. 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 So Steve, I want to pick up on that. You said it's not easy, and it hasn't been for both of us. It's been emotionally challenging. It's been stressful. There's been finances involved, expensive for alternative treatments. I mean, all of that. So it hasn't been easy, but I want to go back to what you're saying. It is simple. We
yeah,
have guides, we have truth principle, and if we can simply keep bringing ourselves back, for us and for all of our listeners, whatever your struggles are today, keep bringing ourselves back to this new universal dream, Steve, that you're talking about, that we are here to just be and emanate love. And in that, we create a new humanity. So let's go there, Steve, with this last few minutes that we have. You have this vision, and I'm so aligned with it, so happy to be supporting it here on this podcast, of creating a new humanity, changing humanity's future. So say a bit more about that. I think that's the last section of the book, and the book does go into this. And I really want to encourage everyone to get it. And Steve, I'll have you talk a little bit about the course that comes with it, but let's go there for a little bit to talk about this, changing humanity's future.
yes. So thank you, Jackie. So about a year ago, a humanities team with Neil Donald Walsh, who's a co-founder, and also the Conversations with God Foundation, and now really faculty that we work with, which is most of them in the transformational education space, the scientists, the spiritual leaders, the philosophers, the embodied practices, almost all of them are in here with us on this Changing Humanity's Future initiative. And what the initiative says is, let's make conscious living pervasive worldwide by 2040. Okay, in 17 years.
Let's go.
So let me just step through a few things related to this. One is where we kind of came in here a little earlier, is there are all on an individual and collective level, as we all know, you just read the newspapers or the news or talk to neighbors, is very challenging, right now, very challenging. The sense of isolation, of anxiety, sometimes going to depression, of disempowerment on the individual side. On the collective side, the drumbeat now on the extreme weather, and that is, scientists say, is a function of global warming. Over in the Ukraine, with what is happening there and what could happen. And then just the social injustice. It's been here forever. Immigrants, boatloads of them going down, not making it, transitioning. So there's a lot. And Generation X and Z and the younger generation has gone so far as to the great resignation, right? I'm out of here. I'm not going to do, I'm not working for just the sales contest kind of company anymore. I'm done, and even our boomer generation is kind of in the same place.
Yeah.
So we're raising our hand. There are one organization that's raised its hand, is the Human Extinction Movement, that people probably read about. It's in the Gets News, and they say, hey, we're on the Titanic. Humanity, unfortunately, really can't adjust, and so this thing's going down. And what we suggest, let's all stop procreating. We'll just sort of wind down humanity as we know it. Now we're saying, okay, we are the other perspective here.
Right.
There are many of us, all of your listeners here and viewers, all of them, right? We're on this conscious journey somewhere, starting at midway. Some people are really really doing this thing very deeply and stretching. So where we realize once we walk through that door, when we see this oneness, the diversity and unity, the new spirituality, all these things we're talking about, and we're living into them. Well, we would never, we're doing the things we can now to about climate change. The shirt I'm wearing, so there's an outlet store here in Boulder, and these shirts, recycled plastic is 30% of the content. So of course, I've stocked my closet with these. Right? That's what we do. I waited 16 years before I could buy an electric car. Couldn't just run out and buy an electric car. But last year, 16 years, okay, I budgeted. I bought my electric car.
I just bought one too.
I've got the cells on my roof for solar, and
Nice.
I could never start a war. I'm coaching people on conscious business. I would never start a GMO company or a media company that was telling false to truths, or
cannabis company.
Right. So we just naturally, this whole cells and service to the body thing, it just naturally happens, right? There's connection, which equals responsibility, which equals positive action. So what we're doing with Changing Humanity's Future is we're saying, hey, we're already a long way in. We're doing good. Let's just get to Malcolm Gladwell's 10%, right? Tipping point.
Yeah.
And then boom, the whole world starts to shift. So now, just something else that we have in here, Humanity's Team is a 501c3 nonprofit. We have a streaming platform. It is the most sophisticated, most advanced conscious streaming platform in the whole world.
Wonderful.
That we've got, even though we're not the largest. It was true streaming. So on any device, and we've got hundreds of these transformational education leaders. Again, you name the scientist, the spiritual leader, they're probably there, probably many. Neil Donald Walsh has 93 programs on Stream Plus. So he and I just created a brand new one on the art and science of conscious living. And we're, for the very first time, you name your own price for this one. These are very expensive for our nonprofit team to create. We spent 6 months creating it, but we're saying, you know what? This is needed out in the world. And we're asking people, please consider our investment if you would, but yes, your budget. And if you truly can't afford anything, then you can have it for $0. Wow. Here's the masterclass.
That's amazing. That is just amazing.
And the streaming platform, we're just out vigilant. We want to get it in every home on the planet translated. We're now starting to introduce 50 different languages on all these programs, each one that comes out, including our new conscious business program. So, and education has always been the key to social change. So when we talk about, all of your listeners we're here, we're living it, but as we know, our neighbors, even family members aren't, right? So, tell them to go to humanitiesteam.org. Pull down the free programs at the top. So the program, pull down the free one, go through all the free programs, get a taste of it. And then we have all kinds of affordable programs, and we have our Tom Shoe 1-for-1. We just give away the streaming platform for those around the world that can't afford it.
Yeah.
So, that's how we're making conscious living pervasive worldwide by 2040 is we're just ramping up, doing education everywhere with all of these so-called best practices, that get us there to that common mountaintop where we're living into that divinity.
So beautiful. I am so glad to be a partner with you on Humanity's Stream and on Humanity's Team, and to help promote what we're both doing, what we're collaborating with, and creating a world where love prevails. So a new universal dream. Steve, tell people where they can get, there we go. Tell people where they can get the new book.
A New Universal Dream, just came out. And if you go to a newuniversaldream.com, you can read a little more about the book. The first 4 chapters of the book are unlocked, so you can read the first 4 chapters for free. And if you buy the book and it's about $19, you can get it at Amazon and different bookstores. Be sure to save your receipt, because if you enter your receipt number there at newuniversaldream.com, we will give you my earlier masterclass on conscious leadership. It's a $300 masterclass for free. So you just enter your receipt number and boom, we download that masterclass for you. It's a fantastic masterclass. So be sure to don't just buy the book without entering your receipt number and getting the free course. Make sure you get the free masterclass too.
Yeah, beautiful. Steve, thank you so much for being here with us. You know what I love about being with you is you're not just somebody who's out there talking the talk and being a teacher. You're somebody who has walked the walk. You know, you've walked away from a career that was wonderful and successful. You've gone through the fire of raising 2 kids and, you know, creating this movement with Neil Donald Walsh and Humanities Team. And you're doing it. You know, you are creating this movement with so many of the top teachers and scientists and authors and thought leaders. So it's just such a joy to see our visions actually being made manifest. And I'm going to keep seeing that every day now as I make my life a living prayer. Keep bringing that vision in of a world transformed by love. So thank you so much, Steve, for being with us. And I do look forward to our next collaboration.
Yeah, me too, Jackie. And thank you so much for having me. What a blast. And hopefully we had a few tools here in this conversation.
I think we left people with a lot of value. So thank you so much for your wisdom and your love. Till next time.
Yeah. Wow, thank you.